What's up, Nerfers, and welcome back to my channel. Now, as I roll the old clip of using a tactical comb for some melee combat, I want you to focus on three main factors that go into a good melee kill. Number one, they are incredibly surprising and embarrassing for the opponent. Number two, they are absolutely hilarious for everyone else. And three, they can be incredibly challenging to get. So going into these 5 kills in the video here, I don't show you, but I probably died about the same exact number of times. Now that brings us to the blaster of the day, which I'm probably going to absolutely butcher the name of this, but I'm going to go with Mangzhong. Now this little beauty was sent to me thanks to Phantom Toys here in Australia, but I've also seen that Out of Darts up in the USA are also selling this in a variety of different colors. Now imagine this, you're sneaking up on an enemy player when suddenly you fail your stealth roll. What do? Do you stand there and get shot by the enemy player? No, because this thing can shoot back. So this is what they're calling a ballistic knife, although I think most of you would probably call this a gun blade. It's a lever action functioning fairly similar to a shotgun, so all of the single shot darts go in a tube mag up the top. It holds 4 of those, plus 1 in the barrel for a total of 5 shots. Now, depending on which spring you put inside this thing, it can send those darts out at around 200 FPS. Which is 200 more than any other melee weapon I've used before. Now, to just go over some of the basics of this blaster, up top we've got a spring-loaded loading door, so that'll just move itself out of the way as you push the darts in. Go tip first, and you load up to 4 of them in there. Once it's fully loaded, what you can do is prime the blaster, which is just a lever action like an old shotgun. Once that dart's in the barrel, and then put 1 more dart in the top. Now just be mindful because this doesn't have a safety, so if you do load one into the barrel, as soon as you pull that trigger, just be careful where you're aiming it because it will go off. Now another notable feature of the blaster is at the back there's a rotating spring cap which allows you to quickly and easily change the power level of the spring. Now I will go through all 3 of these over the chrono just to show you what they can do. Now with the weakest of those 3 springs, something you can do with this blaster is flip cock it. I'm not very good at it. And this lever also really digs into your hand. There's a mold line in the middle of it, which just cuts into the skin of your hand, makes it pretty painful to do. But maybe if you're someone who wears gloves and want to dual wield these, that's definitely something you could do if you want to be a bit more like the Terminator. Now up the front, there's 2 screws on either side, which you can remove and then take the barrel out. I've already done that and put the longer of the 2 barrels in, but it normally comes with a little bit of a shorter barrel, which in my testing doesn't seem to change the velocity, but the longer one does allow you to add some rifling on the front there if you'd like to. Now as for the blade itself, it has just 2 attachment points, one at the front and one at the back that it clips into. And they also sent me a black blade just to show you that you can change the color out on the fly if you'd like to. In fact, I think most of these parts, even this loading door up the top here, they've sent me an orange one of those that you can swap out. Now, I would just like to mention that the material this blade is made of is a rubber material, but it's fairly rigid. Now, I know quite a few Nerf groups are fairly strict on this. They don't really trust their players not to be too brutal with melee weapons. This is definitely one of those that you want to be looking at potentially banning from your games if you can't trust the players not to go full force with them, because this would injure someone if you swung it at full speed. Oh, and just for the record, it clicks back in place. So now that pretty much covers everything I have to say in the overview. Aside from the fact there are some iron sights on the top of the blaster here, although they're pretty much impossible to actually use because you'd have to, I don't know how you'd see past your wrist to actually see those. I'll see what I do when it comes to the accuracy test later on. I may have to hold the blaster in an unconventional way just to use those sights, because as you know, holding it like a melee weapon block the sights with your wrist. Anyway, I think we move on to the chrono test now with all 3 springs. Okay guys, so first up I'm going to use the weakest of the 3 springs. That's what comes in and out of the box as a default. So it's what you would get if you just pulled it straight out the box and shot it over the chrono yourself. Now it also comes with a small packet of darts which are 0.7 grams each, so fairly lightweight. I'll fire a couple of these with each spring type, but mostly I'll be firing worker bamboos which weigh 1 gram each, which are your standard size dart. So I'm just going to do 2 of these They will shoot a little higher in FPS than the worker darts will, but may as well see what they do. 75 FPS. And that one looks like it missed the second sensor on the chrono. With limited darts, let's move on to the workers. 51. 56. 50. 51. So if you want to be able to flip cock this thing, get up there. You're going to be shooting around 50 FPS. But now let's make things a little more interesting and swap in the mid-power spring. 2 more of their darts and then I'll do some workers. .76 FPS. 49 FPS. Doesn't seem to be much of a gain with those lightweight yellow darts. We'll see what the worker darts do now though. .108. 97. 104. 87. 99, 103, 94, 92. So this is more within your HVZ limits. Let's once again make things even more interesting and step up to the most powerful spring. And this is definitely a chonker compared to the other two that I just put in. Looks like I've got 3 more of their darts left over. See what those do, and then I'll do the worker darts last. .183, respectable. 173, 171. Yeah, I don't know many other melee weapons that shoot 180 FPS. But we'll see what the worker darts do now. .176, 171, 172, 176, 178, 160, 151, 159. So there you have it. A melee weapon that shoots 180 FPS. Now, I had fully intended to do an accuracy test of this thing. I was even going to try and hold the blaster in some weird angle that I could actually use the iron sights. But right at the end of the chrono test, I don't know if you probably can't actually see this on camera, but my pusher O-ring decided to come off and shoot itself out the end of the barrel with that last dart. Now, in the box, you do get a bunch of spare O-rings, including 1 spare pusher O-ring, but this is quite an effort to take apart by the looks. There's a lot of screws, and I don't know how this actually goes together. It didn't come with any instructions or anything like that. So while I'm out here at the field, I am not going to be taking this apart. So let's head over for some final thoughts. So although I didn't get to do the accuracy test, this blaster decided it wanted to be a melee only weapon for the rest of the video. When it was working and before that O-ring shot itself out the end of the barrel, this was shooting 180 FPS, and that is 180 FPS more than any other melee weapon I've used before. Now, I was going to do the accuracy test from 20 meters away. This thing would have had no problem at all hitting this target every time. So for the use case where you're sneaking up on someone and you want to get a stealth kill on them, but they notice you just before you're within range, this is going to give you that added edge where you can just point it at them and pull the trigger, and you won't have to go back to respawn and try again. If you would like a melee weapon that can also shoot 180 FPS, or lower than that if you have lower requirements, Or if you want something you can dual wield and flip cock like Arnold Schwarzenegger, this has been the Mangzhong and is available at Out of Darts in the USA or Phantom Toys here in Australia. That is all I have for you today. A pretty simple video on a simple blaster. Like, comment, subscribe and all of that. Here's 2 other videos you might enjoy. And as always, thank you very much for watching. See ya. For those of you who might think my voice sounds a little off today, I do currently have the spicy cough.